Hey, welcome back everybody. We are back, and today we are going over Path of Exile's new patch notes. We just had the announcement live stream. They dropped the patch notes only a couple of hours ago. I've skimmed through them and I've got a couple of things that have jumped out to me. There is a real possibility that we're going to become a minion player in the next league. But let's go ahead and go through the entirety of the patch notes, because I kind of need to know everything, you know? Alright. So first up is Act 4. The 30-day content update adds Act 4, the next chapter in the Path of Exile 2 storyline, continuing on from Act 3. This is all stuff we found out in the trailer, but we now get to jump from island to island in the Karui archipelago. And yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this. I think this is awesome. And then we get to go to the interludes, which are basically 3 side quests to sit between Act 4 and maps. Let's see, we have the Abyssal League, which is basically just the Abyss mechanic with some interesting additions on like how it interacts with other monsters in the map. It also seems to be kind of, I don't know, crossing into the Betrayal territory where it's got like the veiled modifiers, which I'm not mad at. I think those are cool. Should be interesting. Alright, so here's what we really want. Major character balance overhaul. In 0.3.0, we are making very significant changes to character balance across the entire game. Our goal is to increase build diversity by making many more skills and character archetypes viable in the end game. First up is the support gem system overhaul. Support gems are an area that got some of the most major changes in the core design. They are what enable so many interesting mechanics and different ways to play, but PoE 2's support gem system has never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type. We didn't want builds becoming just using the same 5 most powerful supports on every skill, but we also wanted to encourage you to combo abilities. We've removed the restriction of having only one per character, so you can use as many copies as you like. That should mean that the Gemling Legionnaire will also be changing, which might be interesting. Many supports now have multiple tiers as you progress through the game, providing different stat values, additional stats, or perhaps working a bit differently to their lower tier counterparts. Due to these changes, many existing support gems, which will now be tier 1 for cases where multiple tiers now exist, have received small numerical balance changes, and the effects of some support gems have been combined into a single gem. Ooh. We've added 11 new support gems in 3.0. We've also added 40 lineage supports, which are much more powerful supports that are only available in the endgame. A number of support gems with simple effects have been renamed with names that more obviously hint at their functionality. Blood in the eyes, discombobulate, unsteady tempo, unbaiting, unbending, untouchable, unyielding can no longer be engraved, and the existing gems will be deleted. Updating the wording for support gems, which added a cooldown to supported skills. This has not resulted in a change in functionality with the exception of Expanse, which incorrectly had 6-second cooldown when it stated 8 seconds. It is now correctly 8 seconds. Updated the description of Last Grasp to mention that supported minions die before the supports if they take damage exceeding their maximum life while fatally wounded. This functionality was already present but was not previously mentioned. Support gems which support skills you use yourself can no longer support persistent skills. They can still support gems that have both persistent components and manual activated components such as Plague Bearer. Okay. In addition, we fixed a bug where numerous supports which supported skills you use yourself could support skills used by totems or triggered skills. These no longer do so unless they specify otherwise. Clarified the wording of muster support to refer specifically to a number of different reviving minions you have. This is not a functional change. And having a skill socketed with socketed support gems, you do not meet the attribute requirements for Now it disables just those supports instead of disabling the entire skill. Okay, sweet. Lightning, Cold, Fire, Chaos, Infusion support gems have been renamed to Attunement. Okay. New content and features. New Strength skill gem, Fortifying Cry. Perform a war cry that grants guard and causes subsequent shield attacks to release an empowered shockwave when dealing damage. Skill's cooldown can be bypassed by expending an endurance charge. Alright. This might be really powerful on the Warbringer, since Warbringer can bypass the cooldown anyway. Added new strength skill gem, Forge Hammer, hurl a fiery hammer that slams into the ground and lodges there. While the hammer is lodged into the ground, reusing the skill recalls the hammer and resets the cooldown. Alternatively, using a war cry near the hammer causes it to shatter, releasing a number of molten fissures. Okay, new gem, Ancestral Cry, perform a war cry using Glory, gained by igniting enemies to turn you into an embodiment of Comb. While embodying Comb, your footsteps trigger volcanic steps, melee strikes and slams are ancestrally boosted in your melee attacks. Attack hits trigger volcanic eruptions. I feel like that would be super good for the no, not the Warbringer, the new one. The one that does all the fire stuff. Is it something Comb? I don't remember. Let me see. Smith of Katava. I just had to see it. Toxic Domain. New dexterity skill. Create an area of toxic bloom around you on the ground. While you are in the bloom, increase skill cost, regenerate life in your projectile attacks. Attach a toxic pustule, which can be poisoned. Pustules will detonate after a duration or when enough poison has been applied, dealing damage and applying poison to an area around it. I don't love that. I don't know. I don't like place this and then you can attack it. I don't know. It seems weird. Like it's probably good. It's just, I don't know. New dexterity skill, ice tipped arrows. Ready your active bow or spear, empowering your next barrageable bow or projectile spear attacks to create ice fragments on hit. This skill's cooldown can be bypassed by expending a frenzy charge. Added a new intelligence skill gem, Frost Darts. Conjures a number of icy projectiles that launch towards the target. Projectiles that hit a chilled or frozen target create chunks of ice that deal additional damage on impacting the ground. Consumes a cold infusion if possible to cause each projectile to lodge into the enemy, then explode. Added a new strength persistent buff gem, Iron Ward. While active, stores a percentage of the physical damage that is prevented by your armor or other sources of damage reduction. Using this skill releases the stored damage as a nova of spikes. You know what? This is probably a really nice Thorns build thing. Strength Dex, persistent buff, mortar cannon. Raise a cannon totem which uses socketed grenaded skills with significantly improved cooldown recovery rate. I don't know how this is gonna work. Because it's a totem, but it's a persistent buff. So is it just like the active component raises a cannon? Or is the cannon like, does it follow you? Persistent buff, Mirage Archer. While active, dodge rolling creates a mirage that uses socketed ranged attacks for a short duration then vanish. You cannot create another mirage while one exists for a short time after one vanishes. Dodge rolling while you are unable to create a new mirage will restart this timer. Oof. That's mean. Alright, new intelligence persistent buff. Ravenous Swarm. While active and enemies are nearby, swarms of insect emerge from your body and pursue enemies. The swarms are untargetable minions that periodically attack and poison enemies within the swarm. This is the reason I might become a minion player. So this skill sounds awesome. This sounds like a lot of fun. And it might actually be what I try to build around. Because this seems just like... It's basically Arakali spiders, but it's a reservation skill. I want it. Actually, I should... Okay. Persistent buff gem, siphon elements. While active, you have a chance to create an infusion remnant when you freeze, shock, or ignite a target. I think this is going to be really nice for using the infusion remnants, just because I think this is going to be a really good way to do it. The question is, how expensive is this going to be? I hope this is like a 30. I expect this one to be a 100 spirit cost. I have no idea. Grim Feast has been completely reworked and re-enabled. Instead of granting energy shield, it now allows you to collect remnants of your dead reviving minions and activate the skill to instantly revive minions based on their maximum health. Added a new Keystone passive skill to the northwest of the monk starting location, Hollow Palm Technique. The Keystone allows you to use your quarterstaff attacks while unarmed and grants those attacks additional benefits while used unarmed. This thing looks awesome. If it weren't for that minion skill, I might actually start Hollow Palm. Added a new Keystone skill, Ritual Cadence. Keystone charges your invocations every 2 seconds instead of all at once, but triggered skills consume less energy. I need to see how this works. Because this kind of seems like you press the invocation and then it, like, 2 seconds passes and it uses one skill, and then 2 seconds pass and it uses another skill. The alternative is, it will trigger every 2 seconds period always. I want it to work as it triggers every 2 seconds period forever. But I don't think it will. I think you have to activate it still. But we will see. Added a new Keystone passive skill to the northwest of the Witch/Sorceress starting location, Black Flame Covenant. Converts fire to chaos, and damage contributes to ignite chance and magnitude, and ignites deal chaos damage. Yeah, ignites inflicted with fire skills deal chaos damage. Seems cool. I don't know if it's gonna be any good. I also don't know what they're gonna do with the ring that already did this. Added a new Keystone passive skill to the east of the monk starting location, Walker of the Wilds. Causes mana leech to recover based on elemental damage types instead of physical. That's awesome. Added all of the greater and perfect orbs. Added a new type of currency, Hinocorus Lock, which can be used to foresee the result of the next currency item used on it. That's going to be expensive. Maybe? I don't know. We'll have to see, because this is so valuable in PoE1 because of the extreme level of crafting and like the value of the last step of crafting. So this will depend on what situations it can be used in. I don't know enough about PoE2 crafting to know how that actually works. Added over 10 new unique items, added 50 new base types, added 20 new endgame maps, added 15 new omens. Okay. Endgame changes. Currently, access to most pinnacle content requires the same key at the easiest and most difficult version of the content. This creates a negative feeling where at lower difficulties, instead of wanting to run the content, you often are just better off selling it to someone who can run it at maximum difficulty. To address this, each content, excluding Arbiter of Ash, will now drop splinters, which will not form into singular items. Instead of using the singular combined item in the Realm Gate, you can now bring your splinters, and upon inserting them, the interface will appear, allowing you to pick your difficulty, each with a different entry cost. As a result of this change, the corresponding Atlas passive tree no longer affects the difficulty of the content, and has been changed to purely affect content in the maps in the Atlas. Existing Simulacrum Breachstone audience for the Kings can be right-clicked to grant 100 of the relevant splinters, and they can no longer be used. The Arbiter of Ash boss fight is now a static difficulty encounter with infinite portals. Previously, only infinite portals at difficulty 0. The reward of this fight now matches the previous difficulty 4 rewards. Arbiter of Ash Atlas passive skills have been removed, and some of the bonuses have become inherent to the Arbiter of Ash drops. Added an Uber version of the Arbiter of Ash boss fight, which requires the new Calamity fragments to access. These are obtained from Citadel bosses, but only once you've allocated the maximum number of points to your boss Atlas passive tree, ensuring those Citadels are at their highest difficulty. Acquiring map boss Atlas passive points has been adjusted, and they are now obtained by slaying a map boss in 79+, slaying a map boss in 80+, anomaly map at 79+, Citadel map at 79+, Pinnacle of the Flame, Ulroth, this seems like a separate note. Ulroth Origin of the Fall no longer spawns in logbooks. Mysterious anomalies can now appear in the Atlas. Modifiers to Waystones have been reworked. Now every modifier comes with a downside. Monsters deal 20% of damage as extra cold, and a specific upside. Monster pack size, some amount of additional Waystone chance. Downside modifiers have been made weaker to account for the ability for more present than before. Unidentified corrupted Waystones can now be used to access corrupted Nexus. Waystones can no longer have greater than 8 modifiers when corrupted. Items found in very high level areas can have random quality up to 30. Quality currency cannot apply more than 20% quality to an item. Items that can have a maximum of 2 sockets now have a very low chance of generating 3 sockets in high tier maps. Items that have a maximum of 1 socket now have a low chance of generating with 2 sockets. Abyss map has been renamed Marrow. Atlas passive tree changes. The detailed records expedition notable passive now provides +1 to the level of expedition logbooks found in your maps. Expedition logbooks found in your maps always have 4 implicit modifiers. It no longer provides 30% increased quantity of logbooks dropped by runic monsters in your maps. He approaches ritual notable passive skill trees now provides revive monsters from ritual altars in your maps have a 40% chance to, I guess, be magic or rare. Is this already active in the game? No, this will be active in the game next Friday. Essence rework. Essences now have 4 tiers: lesser, normal, greater, and perfect. Instead of adding a modifier for a certain tag, essences now add a specific modifier depending on the tier of the essence. I actually really like this change. Added 70 types of essences. Essences of Torment have been renamed Essences of Abrasion. Hysteria now augments different guaranteed modifiers based on the type of item it is applied to. Yeah, I think essences were better the way they were, so I'm all about this change. Unique strongboxes now have their own unique mini-map icons. Added a mini-map icon to the Rain Festival Beetle monster. Delwyn no longer appears alongside Asmarian wisps during the campaign after the first time you encounter him. Asmari spirits now start appearing in the hunting grounds and beyond instead of in the Grellwood. Skill and persistent buff gems now sell to vendors for gold based on their level and quality. The hooded one can no longer be placed in your hideout. You're still able to identify items from him in towns. The Oriani will continue to serve as the source of identifying items in your hideout once you've completed the campaign. Certain boss arena entrances no longer have a teleport for party members to enter the fight after the fight is started. These players can instead just walk in. You are now able to log directly into town or hideout by holding control while selecting a character. You can now use checkpoints to warp to waypoints in an area, as well as other checkpoints. Omens can now stack with a maximum stack size of 10. Good. Orb of Chance has received a new 3D art. Uncut skill, support, and reservation gems can now be traded through the currency exchange. Awesome. Party members can no longer fruitlessly attempt to open expedition portals. Player changes. Man, we've barely scratched the surface. Alright, when holding down the dodge roll button, your character can now sprint after they finish the roll. The sprint is available for all character classes, and there's no limitation for how long you can sprint for. The primary purpose of the sprint feature is to make navigating areas faster without combat, though if you do take a hit while sprinting, you will fall to the ground. You can no longer socket multiple copies of the same skill gem into your main socket skills. To your main skill sockets, skills not granted by gems, and skills socketed into persistent buff skill gems do not count towards this limit. Skills not granted by gems and skills socketed into persistent buffs. Okay. You can still have multiple copies of specters or tamed beasts, but only one of each kind of monster. Okay. Attribute requirements on all equipment items have been lowered, particularly at in-game and game-based types have 20 to 25% less attribute requirements. Incredible change. Attribute requirements on skill gems have been lowered, about 20 to 25% less. Fire damage no longer inherently has a chance to ignite. Instead, it inflicts flammability on the enemy based on the damage dealt. Flammability is a debuff that lasts for 4 seconds and grants all fire damage against the enemy, including the hit that applied flammability, a chance to ignite that enemy equal to their flammability magnitude. Multiple hits can stack up flammability independently, meaning that the target can be hit. A target being hit frequently and or hard enough will consistently have 100% chance to be ignited. Effects which don't hit but ignite targets as though they did, such as Incinerate or Ignited Ground, also inflict flammability but are not able to ignite targets until the target has 100% flammability. Anything that removes, consumes, or grants immunity to ignite does the same for flammability. These changes do not affect how Ignite itself functions or is calculated once it has been applied. This bothers me a little bit. That means if I've got like a character that has a big Ignite hit, like a big fire hit, and then like a clear skill, if I mess up how my flammability is working, I could get an Ignite based on my clear skill, not my big hitting skill. It might be balanced so that it's not a big deal, but I don't know. This worries me a little bit. It does solve the inconsistencies for Ignite, so it might be overall positive. These changes also apply to any other non-fire damage that becomes capable of igniting, and to enemies. Some enemies deal non-ignite fire damage over time, which is not affected by these changes. Shock now lasts 8 seconds on non-players by default. It still lasts 4 seconds on players. Chill now lasts 8 seconds on non-players by default. Previously 2 seconds. It still lasts 2 seconds on players. Chills on any target are now discarded if their magnitude is less than 30%. That's a lot. Overflow effects of life, mana, and energy shield can now overflow the maximum up to 1.5 from 2 times. Okay. I feel like that was like wasn't that just ES that was really the issue? Okay. Light stun chances of less than 15% are now treated as 0. Elemental exposure now has 15% less effect on magic monsters, 30% less, and 50% less. Unarmed attacks now have a base critical strike chance of 5%, previously none. Great. Glory now decays if you haven't gained any for 15 seconds. Oil Ground's duration is now refreshed when it catches fire. Gaining guard while you already have guard no longer replaces the existing guard buff with a new amount of guard you would gain. Replaces the existing guard buff if the new amount of guard you would gain would be lower than what you already had. Instead, the duration of the existing guard would be extended proportional. Okay, that makes sense now. Ice crystals will now instantly shatter from hits that could consume and freeze, as this is now default behavior. Glacial Cascade and Fragmentation rounds no longer specifically call out this behavior. Added a new mechanic called Elemental Infusion that many elemental spells interact with. Some skills create infusions of a specific element as remnants on the ground, which can be picked up to grant you the infusion. The other skills can consume the infusion for a specific type to grant additional bonuses depending on the skill. Some skills consume infusions that match the skill's elemental type, while others have cross-elemental infusions. The following have been renamed to avoid confusion with the new elemental infusion mechanic. The Amazon's infused weapon skill has been renamed Elemental Surge. Spire of Ire's Chaotic Infusion unique skill has been renamed Chaotic Surge. The Charge Infusion skill has been renamed Charge Regulation. Reloading a crossbow and switching crossbow ammunition no longer reduces the player's movement speed. Blocking is no longer limited to strikes and projectiles by default. All hits that are not specifically unblockable with the red flash can be blocked. Raise, shield, and parry now require you to face the enemy that's hitting you rather than the direction from which the hit originates. Some monster skills for which directionality is unclear have been changed to be blockable from any direction using these skills. Player, minion, and monster base maximum block chance is now 50%, previously 75%. That's a big hit. That's a really big hit. Effects which set a maximum for volatility now properly do so instead of being additive with the default cap of 200. Players now gain 6% or plus 6 to accuracy rating level per level, previously 3, and each point of dexterity now grants 6, previously 5. Accuracy fall-off penalty now linearly interpolates from 2 meters down to 12 meters, the maximum penalty being 90% less accuracy at distance of 9 meters or further. Previously there was no maximum, and at 14 meters you had 100% less accuracy rating. Oof. Player minions now always hit with their attacks. This is huge. Player projectile skills now fire a minimum of one projectile. Even if they should fire 0. I didn't know this was possible. Swapping weapons is now instant. That could be huge. All charge consuming skills now pause their corresponding charge duration while in use. Elemental damage recoup as life and physical damage recoup as life now display in the life section of the character panel. Huge. Clarified on the stun keyword that monster melee damage has 33% more light stun chance and heavy stun buildup, and monster physical damage has 100% more buildup. These bonuses are multiplicative with each other. Note this is purely a description change. Updated the ice crystal keyword to clarify that it blocks movement of smaller monsters, while larger monsters will destroy any crystals in their path. Updated the keyword pop-up for MAME to include its base duration. Alright, ascendancy changes. These are going to be huge. So Warbringer might actually change a lot, especially for the block changes. Okay, answered call notable passive now provides +1 maximum number of summoned totems. Alright, well let's see what that did before. Rushing impacts, mysterious lineage, wait. Oh, this is the Warbringer. Alright, answered call now also provides +1 max summon totems. Trigger when you summon a totem. Okay. Ancestral Spirit skill granted by the answered call notable no longer grants minions from the skill have increased accuracy rating per 3 of your dexterity. Instead, minions from the skill now have +1% increased attack speed per 3. Wait, what? No longer grants minions from the skill have 1% increased accuracy rating. Now it gives attack speed. Okay, I see. Went from accuracy to attack speed because minions always hit, so accuracy does nothing. Great Wolf's Howl has been removed, and the Warcaller's Bellow notable now provides ignore Warcry cooldowns. Okay, so Great Wolf's Howl there. Now this does ignore cooldowns. Okay, cool. That's great. That's +1 ascendancy. Renly's training notable skill now grants gain 35% base chance to block from equipped shield instead of the shield's value, previously 40. Turtle Charm notable passive no longer grants 25% less block or can block all hits while shield is not raised. Instead, it now provides you take 30% of the damage for blocked hits and maximum block chance is 75. I don't love this. Yeah, I don't know about all this. Stacks of Jade granted by the Jade Heritage are no longer lost when you take physical damage from a hit. How does that? Encase in Jade. Consume all stacks of Jade to grant guard based off your maximum life per Jade consumed. Okay. Yeah, I don't care about that. Ancestral spirits from the instant call notable have also been improved. They now appear faster and start using skills sooner. Ancestral Jade Hulk no longer charges, instead uses a war cry to buff nearby allies with 50% increased damage. Their leap slam has also been improved. Ancestral Jade Caster has had its spell casting range increased, and Pinning Jade Storm has had its area of effect increased, and the delay between it forming and exploding has been reduced. Ancestral Warhorn Horn buff and Horn slam have had their area of effect and duration increased, and the Spirit Turtle's aura has had its area of effect increased. Smith of Kitava, Flowing Metal, now causes body armor to grant 35% of armor, also apply to elemental damage from hits. We'll have to see how this works. I'm not convinced this is going to be good enough, but who knows. For now, I'm just going to have to trust. Leather Binding's notable, will now cause body armor to grant 3% regeneration, previously 5. Ow, why? Manifest Weapon skill no longer grants minions from the skill have accuracy rating, it now grants attack speed. Small passive skills providing fire res of 8%. They were 15%. Was Smith of Kitava just super powerful? Was Smith of Kitava just super powerful or something and I didn't know it? Small passive skill prior to living gives 5% increased strength instead of minion of steel, 20% increased damage. That's at least good. Okay. Gimling Legionnaire. Advanced Thaumaturgy notable skill no longer grants 30% less cost of skill, or skill gems have 30% more attribute requirements. It now grants Thaumaturgical Dynamism buff, which while active causes you to passively generate power, frenzy, and endurance charges once every 8 seconds. The type of charge is determined by the attribute requirements of your socketed skill gems. The higher your total strength requirement of your total socketed skill gems, the more likely you are to generate endurance, dexterity, frenzy charge, intelligence, power charge. Gem-studded notable passive skill no longer grants you. You can use each type of support gem an additional time. Instead, it now provides for each color of socketed gem is the most numerous gain. Hits against you have no critical damage bonus. Skills have 30% less cost, 40% less movement speed penalty for using skills while moving. I hate this. I don't like either of these personally. Passive skill now also provides +1 maximum number of summon totems. Nice. Right where we want them. No longer grants projectile damage, builds pin. The Polish That Gear notable no longer provides gain deflection rating equal to 20% of armor. Now provides deflection rating equal to 20% of armor, and no longer grants 100% of armor has extra stun threshold. Okay. Good. Suppressing Fire now provides 40% more immobilization buildup instead of projectile damage, builds pin. Supporting Fire skill granted by Unleash Hell notable passive skill no longer grants minions from this skill have 1% accuracy rating. Instead, it grants area of effect per dexterity, or per 3 dexterity. Death from above. Command for Supporting Fire now deals 3 times more damage at all gem levels. Whoever pays best now provides there is no limit to the number of banners that you can place, and banners gain glory 5 glory per second instead of can place multiple banners. Okay, much better. Added a new Strategic Embankments notable passive skill which requires cannons ready. This causes your totems to grant embankment auras to players when placed, which grant different effects depending on the variety of totem. Ancestral Warrior, 40% increased glory. Artillery, immobilization buildup. Dark Effigy, damage over time. Mortar Cannon, 15% of damage gained is extra fire. Siege Ballista, increased damage against immobilized enemies. Shockwave Totem, increased area of effect. Real quick, let's see if we can look at like, okay, Ancestral Warrior Totem. See, the thing I'm trying to understand is the persistent buff. I'm gonna have to look in-game, I think. But some of the new skills have me confused a bit. Alright, Ritualist. As the Whispers ask, notable passive skill has been removed. And as the Whispers demand, notable now also grants the Ritual Sacrifice skill. The Wildwood Persistence notable passive now grants 10% increased life recovery rate per 5% missing unreserved life. Okay. Alright. Critical Strike notable passive for the Amazon now has gain additional critical strike. Hit chance equal to 15% of excess chance to hit with attacks, previously 25. Okay. And no longer specifies it ignores hobble. Elemental Surge, notable passive skill, grants 3 surges, previously 2. Okay, Sustainable Practices now grants 50% evasion rating. Also grants elemental damage reduction, previously 30. Okay, so Pathfinder tank buff. Poisonous Concoction has been renamed to Acidic Concoction. The concoction consumes charges from your mana flask to throw a flask that explodes, dealing physical attack damage in the area. Thrown flask consumes The thrown flask consumes poison on a hit to cause an acidic burst, which deals damage based on the highest expected remaining damage of poison on the target. Acidic Concoction and the acidic burst cannot poison. Acidic burst deals unscalable physical damage equal to 150% of the expected remaining damage consumed poison. So Poisonous Concoction is dead? Question mark? I'm not sure. Like, actually not sure. Fulminating Concoction no longer inflicts lightning exposure and now has 50% more shock effect and grants more chance to shock. Shattering Concoction increased freeze duration. Bleeding Concoction no longer has 200% more magnitude of bleeding, now aggravates bleeding on target's hit. Okay. Explosive Concoction no longer has 200% more magnitude of ignite inflicted, no longer inflicts fire exposure on hit. Now fires up to 4 additional mini flask projectiles at ignited enemies. Explosive Concoction quality no longer grants effective fire exposure, instead granting up to 2 additional mini flask. Okay. Deadeye. Avidity, notable passive, no longer grants 30% chance to gain maximum frenzy charges when you gain a frenzy charge. Instead, it's a 50% chance to gain an additional frenzy charge when you gain a frenzy charge. Called Shots, notable passive, no longer lets you apply an additional mark. Instead, it lets your projectiles chain to marked enemies and grants the new Called Shots meta skill that repeatedly marks enemies near you, bypassing your mark limit. That sounds awesome. Eagle Eye's notable passive skill no longer removes distance-based accuracy penalty. Instead, it applies 20 stacks of critical weakness to enemies when you consume a mark on them. Okay. That seems really powerful. Alright, Elemental Expression skill granted by the Scatter Them to the Winds notable now deals 8 to 244 to 12 to 366 fire damage with fiery explosions at gems level 1 through 20. previously 5 to 152 and 8 to 228. Okay, so buffs across the board, looks like. The meditate skill granted by faith is a choice, now has a cooldown of 7 to 5.1, previously 10 to 8.1. Meditate now provides more energy shield recharge rate. So way more, way better. Okay. Acolyte of Chayula. No longer gains a chance to gain a percentage of damage with hits as extra damage. Instead, it now grants leech recovers based on chaos damage instead, as well as physical. Lucid Dreaming no longer provides any benefits itself, now being a multi-choice notable with the following choices: choice of life, all flames of Chayula you manifest are red, choice of mana, all flames are blue, all flames are purple. Okay, so the things you pick up are the things that you want, maybe. Into the Breach now grants remnants spawned by supported skills have a 50% increased effect. Grasp of the Void, notable passive skill, has been renamed Illusory Void and no longer requires an Embrace the Darkness. It no longer provides gain 1% extra chaos per unreserved darkness, instead grants new skill Void Illusion. Embrace the Darkness now has Darkness Reservation lasts for 5 seconds, previously 10. Inner Silence has been renamed to Deepening Shadows and no longer grants reduced Darkness Reservation duration, instead it now grants 1% increase maximum darkness per 1%. Chaos resistance, okay. Ravenous Doubts, notable passive skill, has been renamed to Inner Turmoil and no longer grants mana leech recovers based on damage types as well as physical damage. Instead now gain 1 volatility on inflicting an elemental ailment and take no damage from volatility. Okay. I'm not, like, volatility is cool. I don't care that much about it. Consuming Questions notable has been renamed to Unraveling and no longer grants you cannot recharge energy shield or mana leech effects also recover energy shield. Instead it now grants chaos damage from hits, also contributes to ignite chance, freeze buildup, or shock chance, changing every 2 seconds. Okay, so I'm probably still not playing Chayula for sure. Blood Mage, small life prior to Sanguimancy has been removed. Great. Sanguimancy notable is now free to allocate. Life Remnants, the Life Remnant skill it grants now spawns a remnant on hitting a target instead of critically hitting. Okay, awesome. Gore Spike passive skill now grants critical damage bonus per 50 life, previously 40, and has swapped locations with the Sunderflesh notable passive. Skill, okay. I think that's good. Let me double check. Let's see, Sunder the Flesh. Okay, Sanguimancy, Gore Spike, Sunder the Flesh. It makes more sense, but I don't like it. Did they change Sunder the Flesh at all? Never mind, I hate this. This is bad. Between the Cracks. Yeah, Between the Cracks notable passive has been renamed to Sanguine Tides and no longer provides critical hits, ignore monster armor. Instead, it now provides gain 1 life flask per 4% of life spent and 50% less life recovery from flasks. It also now has when your life flask reaches full charges, 40% of the charges are consumed. Gain 1% damages physical for 3 seconds per charge consumed this way. That doesn't seem super worth it either. Okay. Open Sores has been renamed to Whispers of the Flesh and no longer grants your curses have infinite duration. Instead, it now grants enemies affected by your curses have at least 15% life reserved. Yeah, I don't love any of these, honestly. I hate this change. So the reason I hate this change, so gore spikes in Sunder the Flesh, I always loved like how they were placed. Because this meant if you were playing a blood mage and you decided that you wanted to go an attack build, you could still build up critical damage bonus and do life stacking with an attack build. Because Sunder the Flesh is only good if you are going a spell build that specifically needs crit chance, right? Because if you're going like a cold focused spell build for whatever reason, you probably don't need a 15% base skill crit because you've already got a 12% spell crit base. Because that's what all the cold spells are. So this has a lot less value as opposed to if you were like a fire mage. Like if you're using fire spells, this is way more valuable. Point is that you don't always want this. If you are playing a blood mage and you are stacking health and going crit at all, you definitely want this. If you're going crit, you definitely want Gore Spike. You don't always want Sunder Flesh. This is a bad change. It wouldn't be as bad a change if this was generic. Like if this was just I don't know, this would have to be attacks as well. Because even if it weren't, like if you could only use, how do I say this? This isn't a bad node on its own. It's just not a valuable node all of the time. And to hide something that is valuable behind something that is specifically not valuable hurts. Like that doesn't feel good. Especially when I don't think there's a ton going on for Blood Mage anyway. Like you've got a bunch of weird life things, and then you've got like, oh yeah, you do bleeding things. Like your elemental damage also works on bleeding. Okay, great. But there's no like, I don't know, there's very little damage potential. All of the damage potential seemed like it was locked right here. Gore Spike. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Alright, Infernalist. Infernal Hound, granted by the Loyal Hellhound. Now ignites enemies within 2.5 meters, previously 1.5. Okay. Pyromantic Pact, notable, now grants Infernal Flame equal to twice your mana. Previously equal to your mana, but causes you to lose 25% of your Infernal Flame per second if you haven't gained it in the past 2 seconds. Okay. Demon Form, granted by Demonic Possession, no longer disables your weapons but has its own weapon set. No longer grants level of all spell skills while in Demon Form increases spell damage per Demon Flame. It now grants more spell damage per Demon Flame, and quality now provides cast speed. Okay. Pyromantic Pact, what was that? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm probably not gonna go on the Infernalist. Dominion over Flesh notable passive skill has been renamed to Incessant Cacophony. Now grants your curses have infinite duration instead of affect hexproof enemies. Okay. Eldritch Empowerment no longer provides non-channeling spells. Grant additional 3% of maximum energy shield. Deal 30% more damage, or spending energy shield does not interrupt recharge. Instead, it provides spells deal 30% more damage when sacrificing energy shield. Sacrifice 5% max ES to cast a spell. Does not interrupt recharge. Okay. The price of power no longer grants non-channeling spells consumer power charge if able to deal more damage. Now provides the spells consumer power charge if able to deal more damage. Okay, so this now works with channeling skills, basically. And it does way more damage. Chronomancer. Flood of Echoes notable passive skill has been renamed to Inevitability. It no longer grants the Unleash skill. It instead now grants the new skill Inevitable Agony, which curses all targets in an area after a short delay, causing a portion of damage they take from hits to be stored in the cursed debuff. When the debuff's duration expires, they take that stored damage again all at once. The Quicksand Hourglass notable passive skill no longer grants every 10 seconds gain 50% more cast speed for 5 seconds. Instead, it now grants Sands of Time, which grants 60% cast speed, scaling down to 1% over 10 seconds, at which point it will scale back up to 60%. Sands of Time also grants 1% increased area of effect, scaling up to 60% over 10 seconds, at which point it does scale back down to 1%. Okay, sweet. That's interesting. I like that. Will I use it? Probably not, but it's interesting and thematic, and that I like. Stormweaver. Elemental Storm skill granted by Tempest Caller notable has had its cooldown lowered to 3 seconds at all levels, previously 5. That's great. Rain Dancer notable has been renamed to Multiplying Squalls and no longer provides more cooldown recovery rate for Elemental Storm. Instead, it now provides +1 limit for all elemental skills. This is awesome. Honestly. Force of Will, because this means that it's not just for Elemental Storm. This means it can apply to like Firestorm, which is really good. Force of Will notable passive skill no longer grants 1% increased effect of Arcane Surge on you per 25 max mana. Oh wait, hold on, wait. No longer grants increased effect of Arcane Surge per max mana. It now grants 20% of damages taken from mana before life and 20% increased magnitude per 10% missing mana. Oof. That hurts. Although that did, I think, need to happen. The Arcane Surge increased effect was insane. It is so let's see. That is effectively 500 mana per 10% missing mana. So it's still really good. Scouring Winds notable passive skill has been renamed Storm's Recollection and no longer grants exposure. You inflict lowers affected resistance by an additional 12%. Instead, it now grants remnants you create reappear once 3 seconds after being collected. Heart of the Storm notable passive skill has been renamed Refracted Infusion and no longer grants 40% of elemental damage taken, recouped its energy shield. Instead, it now provides 50% chance when collecting elemental infusion to gain another different elemental infusion. Okay, so those could be good. Alright, passive skill tree changes, which are going to be, I think, massive, and we probably won't know most of them until we're in game. Elemental Equilibrium Keystone passive skill has been redesigned and now causes infusion remnants you create to be random elements. Eternal Youth Keystone passive skill no longer grants you your life flask to recovery energy shield instead, and now causes your life flasks to have 50% less recovery. Wait. Okay, Eternal Youth. What did Eternal Youth do before? Life recharges instead of energy shield. Got it. So life recharge instead of energy shield and life flasks recover less. Giant's Blood now halves the amount of increased life granted by strength. That hurts. That probably hurts a lot. Glancing Blows Keystone passive skill now provides chance to evade is unlucky and chance to deflect is lucky. It no longer provides block chances doubled. Take 50% of damage from blocked hits. Okay. Resolute Technique Keystone passive skill now grants accuracy rating is doubled instead of your hits cannot be evaded. I don't like that. 8 new clusters between warrior and witch areas of the passive tree. 15 new clusters for the warrior area. 23 new for the mercenary. 17 new for the ranger and huntress. 17 new for the monk. And 25 for the witch and sorceress areas. Sources of increased area of effect have been lowered by approximately 25%. Oof. Days buildup has been replaced with days on hit and with adjusted values. Sources of reduced reservation of skills now grant increased reservation efficiency. Many existing clusters have also received updates. These changes may result in your existing passive tree being forcefully refunded if you had allocated nodes around areas where the layout changed. A small attribute passive skill has been removed on all of the outward highways between class starting locations. Okay. That's, I think, good news. Whew, halfway. There's a lot to go through. Okay, well, I'm gonna take a break from this real quick and I'm gonna boot up PoE 2 because I'm gonna look at persistent buff skills and see what we have as like examples for things. Been a while since I've been in game. All right. Okay, so I want to go gems, spirit, persistent, okay, Arctic armor, Covalescence, Ghost Dance, Herald of Ash, Magma Barrier, Herald of Blood, Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice, Man Remnant, Plague Bearer. Maybe it's like this. Plague Bearer is you build it up and you activate it. So maybe the new, yeah, okay, where its skill changes. Okay, so new. New persistent buff gem mortar cannon raises a cannon totem, which uses socketed grenade skills and significantly improved cooldown recovery rate. Yeah, I'm not really sure how that one's gonna work. I'm guessing it's gonna work like Plague Bearer, but who knows? Because Mirage Archer is easy to figure out while active dodge rolling. Ravenous Swarm, I assume, is totally passive, which is why I'm interested. Right, and it's just enemies are nearby, swarms attack them, easy. Still a lot of questions I have with this one, like how it works, but I really want to build around this. But that one at least makes sense to me. But I don't see something that like relates, I guess, to the mortar cannon. I don't know. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Alright, back down to skills. Alright. The base damage scaling of all player spell and secondary damage skills has been tweaked to scale better in the late game. Generally speaking, spells that do not have damage number changes called out below will have near identical base damage at low levels, though roughly 5% more damage at gem level 20, roughly 20% more at level 30. So everything got a little bit buffed unless it's called out below. Mana cost growth of all skills has been rebalanced. Generally speaking, they have similar mana cost at low levels, slightly higher mana cost at some intermediate gem levels, and lower mana cost, sometimes dramatically lower, at levels higher than 20. Banners no longer gain Valor or have any other Valor related stats, but instead generate glory when you attack enemies. They all require 200 glory to place. Unlike other glory based skills, banners can gain glory while the banner is placed. All sources of banner valor gained have been replaced with banner glory generated. Banners now have a global limit of 1 allowed to be placed, but there are ways on the passive tree or the tactician ascendancy to increase this. Curse skills and all skills that apply elemental exposure now can't apply those debuffs to enemies that are significantly higher level than these skills' own level requirement. This requirement is very lenient and disappears completely by high gem levels. Blink, Coalescence, and Sacrifice can no longer be activated in specific weapon sets. They are now required to be active in both weapon sets and will fail to activate if this is not possible. Good. I like that. Higher rarity enemies are now less affected by curses. Curses have 15% less effective magic monsters. Okay. So curses are worse overall. Movement speed penalty inflicted by skills. The movement speed penalty inflicted by skills that can be used while moving now begins to fall off slightly more quickly while using the skill. The spirit cost of specters has been adjusted such that the specters with high spirit cost are generally cheaper, while some of the cheaper specters are now more costly. Specters and tame beasts now deal 25% more damage at all gem levels. Instant skills such as Unbound Avatar are now usable while on a row amount. Mark skills are no longer spells. Okay. Reservation skills that had reduced reservation with quality now have increased reservation efficiency with quality instead. Killing Palm, Staggering Palm, Shattering Palm, Hand of Chula, Frozen Lotus, or Locust now deal damage based on your equipped quarterstaff. They no longer have flat added damage or additional critical strike chance. Palm skills can no longer be used without a quarterstaff equipped by default. Shockwave Totem, Ancestral Warrior Totem, Artillery Ballista, Siege Ballista now use your equipped weapons. They no longer have their own flat damage. Okay. Ancestrally boosted slams now have 25% increased area of effect, previously 20. We've also fixed a boost where area of effect bonuses on ancestral boosted slams was described as multiplicative more instead of additive increased. Seems like it might have been just a description bug though, not a actual bug. The following skills found as inherent skills on wands and staves now deal approximately 12% more damage on skill levels 11 and onwards. Bone Blast, Chaos Bolt, Decompose, Fire Bolt, Freezing Shards, Lightning Bolt, Power Siphon, and Solar Orb. Unfortunately, Decompose is going to need a lot more help before it can come back, at least in my opinion. Ancestral Warrior Totem now have no limit. Socketed Mace skills now have 50% less attack speed. Arc is now a projectile. It no longer causes explosions against shocked enemies and is no longer a payoff skill. It now chains 6 to 9 times at gem levels 5 through 20. And now has 50% more shock magnitude and can consume a lightning infusion to chain additional times and deal more damage. Now deals 2 to 39 damage at gem level 5. Scaling up to 20 to 386 at level 20, which is significantly more. Quality now provides a chance to not remove infusion, but still count as consuming them. Previously, more damage per remaining chain. It is... I don't... For single target situations, it seems like it might actually be right around the same. Archmage has gotten a percentage increase by 1%. Artillery Ballista has been renamed to Siege Ballista and now has a duration of 8 seconds from 16. Bolt attack speed is now 25% of base and deal 25 to 66% attack damage, previously 30 to 79. Bolt explosion radius is now 1.4 from 1.8. Explosion now deals 50 to 132. Previously 70 to 185, and now provides 0.0 to 0.3 meters radius. Previously 0 to 0.4, I'm guessing. Okay, so Artillery Ballista was OP, I guess. Ball Lightning can now consume a fire infusion and leave a trail of ignited ground. Batter Shout Explosion now deals more damage against unique enemies. Berserk grants increased rage effect and no longer grants leech per rage. Bind Spectre Quality now provides more damage instead of reduced reservation or yeah, reduce reservation. Using blink no longer counts as dodge rolling, and now has a minimum gem level of 8, previously 14. Bone offering spike duration is now 8 seconds, previously 5, while the explosion radius is 2.4, previously 2. Explosion now deals 256 to 917 to 385 to 1375. Physical damage at gem levels 11 to 20, previously much lower. And the buff now has minions take reduced damage while shielded, and now has absorbs first hit, dealing over 25% of minions max health. Quality now provides shielded minions take less damage over 1 second for 1 second after shield loss, instead of more physical damage on explosion. Okay, so probably not. Let's see. So actual damage nerf, maybe? Bone Shatter, Shockwave now deals 100% more damage against unique enemies. Cast on Freeze, Shock, and Ignite have been combined into a single gem. Cast on Elemental Ailment. This gem requires 100 Spirit and has a minimum level of 14, and combines the energy gain conditions of all 3 previous gems. Existing copies of these gems will be updated to the Cast on Elemental Ailments when you load your character's stash tab or stash tab holding them. Chaos Bolt granted by Withered Wand now inflicts 1 to 3 withered for 4 seconds on hit. Cluster Grenade primary grenade attack now deals 299 to 490% from 199 to 327. Mini grenade attack damage is now 174 to 286 from 137 to 225. Now fires exactly 18, previously 14, over a increased radius. So, cluster grenade good, or better rather. Cold Snap has been reworked and renamed to Snap. It can now be used on any orb spell or any frozen, shocked, or ignited enemy, causing an explosion of the corresponding damage type and creating a remnant of the corresponding type from the enemies. This explosion can chain react to a limited extent from the enemies hit that are affected by the same ailment. Now deals a nice chunk of damage based on the element being consumed. Looks like less damage than it was before. Quality now grants a chance to spawn an additional remnant. Okay. So cool. I don't know about it. Comet now deals a ton of cold damage. Wait. Yeah, deals slightly more cold damage. Scaling up to 1243 from 1062. Can now be fire infused to deal extra fire damage and gain base radius. Okay, cool. So base damage increase and can be infused with fire. Quality now provides Contagion. Quality now provides contagion targets 2 additional enemies when cast instead of maximum debuff damage bonus from spreading. Ooh, very nice. That's gonna feel great. Defiance Banner. Aura now grants more armor and evasion rating. 30% more, previously 6 to 9, and 30% increased movement speed, previously 5. Now has a duration. Oh, right, it's a banner though. Yeah, I don't care about that. Despair. Curse now inflicts -41 to -49 from 20 to 24. Oh, that's why they nerfed curses. So unique enemies now have 50% less effective curses, and it's because they made curses twice as good. I see. I understand now. Disengage now provides chance for an additional shockwave instead of increased cooldown recovery rate. Dread Banner Now grants blast charges per second and more elemental ailment threshold. Neat. I'm still not using banners. Earthquake jagged ground radius is now 1.8 meters, previously 2.2. Aftershock now has 160 to 580. Attack damage from 150 to 468. And a radius of 2.4 to 3 meters. Previously 3.4 at all gem levels, so it gets almost as good as it was before and does more damage. Earth Shatter quality now provides more damage with hits for each spike instead of maximum spikes. Detonation also now triggers all existing spikes, or now triggers existing spikes. Electrocuting Arrow no longer a movement skill, now shoots an arrow forward that explodes, applying electrocuting rod to all enemies hit. Quality now causes hits against targets with attached rods to gain damage as extra lightning damage. Hits against targets, got it. Elemental Sundering. Pulse can now consume up to 20 ailments, previously 9. Cold Explosion now deals 40% more damage. The cold now deals 100% more damage against unique enemies. Elemental Sundering. Is that new? Huh. Interesting. I didn't even know that was a skill. Ember Fusillade can now be infused with lightning, create beams that chain to enemies. Infusion is consumed when the Fusillade fires. All embers in that Fusillade now has a minimum gem level of 9. Wait, what? Ember Fusillade is no longer a level 3 gem, it is now a minimum level 9 gem. That sucks. I enjoyed leveling with Ember Fusillade. Emergency Reload now reloads all of your crossbow ammunition clips, previously just your most recent, and empowers each clip's ammunition to deal increased damage for its duration or until you expend empowered bolts. Now has a number of each clip's empowered bolts equal to the maximum of ammunition in the clip. Enfeeble no longer has targets deal less damage or makes unique targets deal less damage. Curse now makes targets deal 21 to 29% less damage. Okay, so it's just, that's the way it works now. Escape Shot now creates ice fragments in its area of effect. Explosive Spear, Ignited Ground, now lasts 8 seconds, previously 4. Eye of Winter, when passing through an allied flame wall, the eye itself, and now all shards subsequently released will receive flame wall's added fire damage. Fangs of Frost Explosion now causes 150% more freeze buildup at level 1 and gains 9% more level. Quality now provides chance to not consume parried debuff instead of strike range. Fireball no longer creates a secondary firebolt projectiles by default. Instead, it can consume a fire infusion to do so. Now has a minimum gem level of 3, previously 9. Okay, so Fireball and Ember Fusillade switched places. I don't love that, honestly. I liked Ember Fusillade more. Primary Projectile and Explosion now deal 15 to 22 damage at gem level 3. Previously 9 to 14, scaling up to 242 to 362. So significantly better. Secondary projectiles now deal 404 to 606. So way better. And secondary projectiles can now hit the same target as the primary projectile. can more than one secondary projectile hit is the question I'm gonna have, because that might make a huge difference. Firestorm now has a smaller base radius and creates 1 bolt every 0.2 seconds, previously 0.1. Can now consume every type of elemental infusion. Fire infusion doubles the size and creates 3 times as many bolts. Cold and lightning infusions cause the storm to create additional cold and lightning bolts respectively. One of each infusion can be consumed by a single use of the skill. Firebolt damage is now 56 to 83, previously 96 to 144. So weaker, significantly weaker unless you infuse it. Flame Wall can now consume lightning infusion to grant additional lightning damage to projectiles that pass through it, as well as fire damage. No longer causes projectiles to pass through to ignite enemies. Now deals fire damage per second to enemies in the wall. At gem levels 1 through 20, now ignites as though dealing 5 to 8 fire damage at gem level 1 to 181 to 271 at gem level 20. Now has a base critical hit chance of 5, previously 0. Flammability, conductivity, and hypothermia have been combined into elemental weakness. Fragmentation rounds. Explosions from frozen enemies now converts all physical to cold and will cause further explosions from any frozen enemies it hits, though it cannot propagate any further. Explosion radius is now 2 from 1.8. Okay, Frost Bomb now deals less damage. Significantly less damage. Now has a cooldown of almost double. And now has a 4-second duration detonation time instead of a 3-second duration. Now chills enemies as though dealing 300% more damage and applies elemental exposure. I don't love that. Frost Wall now deals less damage in the first 0.5 seconds. Okay. Frost Bolt base projectile speed has been lowered by 20%, no longer leaves chilled ground as it travels. Instead it chills as though dealing 100 to 195% more damage. Projectile now deals 9 to 14, previously 15 to 22, scaling up to 144 to 216, previously 201 to 302. Change does not affect the explosion. I don't know enough about Frostbolt. I'd feel like the slower speed might actually make this okay, but I don't know. Frozen Locust Ice Crystal now deals less damage for the first 0.5 seconds of its duration. Galvanic Shards. Ammunition no longer has less reload speed, now has 1 bolt per loaded clip, previously 5. Projectile attack images 21 to 54 from 14 to 31. While beam attack damage is 107 to 272. And now fires 8 fragments, previously 6, and a mana cost of 10 to 48. Previously 13 to 61. Quality now provides fragments per shot instead of bolts loaded per clip. Okay, so Galvanic Shards is much better, it seems. Gas Grenade no longer has special behavior, causing it to detonate as soon as possible as it stops bouncing. Instead, strictly obeys its detonation time like other grenades. Glacial Bolt. Ice crystals now have 50% more area of effect if shattered. Ice crystals now deal less damage in the first 0.5 seconds of its duration. I don't love these. The first 0.5 seconds of duration, I don't love that. Glacial Cascade no longer consumes freeze on enemies to deal 350% more damage. It now consumes freeze on non-unique enemies to deal 150% more damage. and consumes freeze on unique enemies to deal 500% more damage. Oh, okay, this is what they were talking about when they were talking about like freezes on unique enemies are harder and therefore should be rewarded more. Burst radius is now 0.6, previously 0.5. Final burst radius is now 0.9 to 1.2, previously 0.7 at all gem levels. Quality now provides fizz as extra cold. Hailstorm rounds. Bolts now fall in an expanding circle rather than overlapping with each other. Now has an impact radius of 1 meter, previously 1.2. And a rain radius of 4 meters, previously 2.5. One bolt now falls every 0.1 second, previously 0.3. And there is no longer a minimum distance that the bolts can land before firing location. Now deals 146 to 254, previously 109 to 204, and has more freeze buildup. Okay, so seems better. Herald of Thunder, AoE nerf, X-Blast. More damage per 1 second remaining duration of remove curse instead of more chaos damage. How does this work with infinite duration? I don't know. High velocity rounds no longer consume fully broken armor. Instead, hitting a fully broken armor enemy will apply a debuff to that enemy, which causes your attack it hits against that enemy to deal additional physical damage equal to 5% of the physical damage dealt to the high velocity round that applied the debuff. Oof. So it's really complicated impale. Can now consume a cold infusion to deal more damage and create an area of effect. Area of chilled ground. Ice shards now deal attack damage 29 to 82, previously 12 to 33, and arm after 1.5 seconds. That's a lot. They now deal 80% less damage for the first 0.5 seconds of the duration. I hate that. They no longer deal 700% more damage after 0.5 seconds. Projectile now deals 11 to 29 at gem level 5 to 20, previously 12 to 33. Now the arming time before which it will now has an arming time before which it will not explode even if shot directly under an enemy. Quality now provides shard chills enemy instead of have existed for at least have more damage. Okay, so how does this work then? They arm after 1.5 seconds. And they deal less damage for the first 0.5 seconds of the duration. So I have to wait 2 seconds? Or is this irrelevant? I don't know. Incendiary shot now has ignites you inflict with this skill are 200% faster, and now has 300% increased ignite duration. For each pellet that hits a target, now inflicts more flammability, previously 100%. Now provides increased ignite duration for each fragment instead of ignite magnitude. I don't like things like this, because this tells me that ignite is not good enough on its own. Incinerate has been reworked. It now requires fuel gained by spending mana. It now requires fuel gained by spending mana to use. It no longer has a mana cost itself and no longer applies fire exposure. Its cast speed is now fixed and gains a stage every 0.25 seconds. Its cone length is now 5.8 meters, previously 4.6, and now has 12 maximum stages, previously 8. It no longer creates burning ground by default. Instead, a fire infusion can be consumed to restore the functionality that has been locked behind a paywall. Ignited ground radius is now 1.4 from 1.8. Its minimum gem level is now 13, previously 5. Beam now has less ignite duration and deals more damage per stage. Beam now ignites as though dealing 190 to 519 to 285 to 778, previously a lot less. So it deals a lot more damage. Okay, whatever. It's not like the burning ground actually matters anymore. Now empowers 1 attack per 10 enemy power in range. Counting up to 50 power. Plus 1 additional attack per endurance charge. No longer has Warcry speed while empowered. Attacks now gain fire damage, previously 5%. Wait. Okay, it no longer has 4 to 38 increased Warcry speed, while empowered attacks now gained 32 to 49 damages fire, previously 5 per 5 power, up to 100%. Infernal's Cries Combust now deals 6 to 9 to 112 to 167. So slightly worse. Though it now deals significantly more damage, gem levels past 20 now allows you to expend an endurance charge to bypass the cooldown rather than consuming endurance charges to empower additional attacks. Quality now provides empowered attacks gain, damages extra fire. Okay. Killing Palm now grants 1 power charge when culling a normal or magic, and 2 when culling a rare, and 3 when culling a unique. Lightning Bolt, granted by Choir of the Storm, now correctly typed as a trigger skill, which means it won't work to add to other triggered skills. Lightning Conduit no longer consumes shocks from targets hit, but now has a 6-second cooldown. Ouch. Now deals 69 to 208, previously 41 to 123. Scaling up to 189 to 568, previously 99 to 297. Now has 2 additional bolts if a shocked enemy is in targeted area, previously 1 to 4 bolts if at least 1 shock consumed. Quality now provides more damage with hits per 5% shock on enemy instead of chance on consume to reapply. I mean, I'm okay with most of this except for that 6-second cooldown. That's rough. That's a pretty significant cooldown. Quality now provides... So Lightning Rod now provides additional burst on impact instead of area of effect. Lightning Spear now fires 5 secondary bolts at all levels, previously 3 to 8, no longer deals more damage when consuming a frenzy charge. I don't know how impactful that is. Living Bomb and Solar Orb have swapped places. Living Bomb is now a tier 5 elemental skill gem, while Solar Orb is inherent on Pyrophyte staves. Existing items are not affected in this change. Living Bomb no longer explodes at the end of its duration. Instead, it explodes upon dealing sufficient damage to the enemy or just killing it. It now drops a Fire Infusion Remnant. Neat. Magma Barrier now passively increases your chance to block while active. Sick. Over time it will charge up lava. While fully charged, your next block with your shield raised will spray lava in front of you and grant you an endurance charge. Now grants 25% increased block chance. Magma Spray now has 6 to 8 added fire damage per 15 evasion on shield, and has a radius of 2.8 meters. Magma Spray. Wait, does Magma Barrier not work on armor shields? Now has 6 to 8 fire per evasion on shield. Or did it already have... I have it. I have the game up. I can just look it up. Okay, it already has that. Back here, magma barrier. So it already has that for armor. And the effectiveness of added damage went up. Mana drained. Now leeches 30 to 408 at gem levels 1 to 20. Previously 10 to 136. Now has reduced mana leech rate at all levels. Quality now provides additional mana leached. Okay. Now grants 47 to 281 mana at gem levels 4 to 20. Previously 35 to 208. Okay, so mana remnants are more impactful. Mana Tempest now has a minimum level of 7. What does Mana Tempest do? Previously 9. Or is Mana Tempest a support? I don't know. Molten Blast now steps backwards instead of forwards if used while moving in the opposite direction where you were targeting or attacking in place. Now inflicts more flammability and 100% more ignite duration. Secondary projectile count can no longer be modified. Quality now grants chance to inflict elemental exposure on hit. Orb of Storms now triggers from casting any spell in its radius, previously only lightning spells, but incorrectly described as all lightning skills. Now creates a lightning infusion remnant if all of its bolts are used up or its duration expires. It now has a maximum of 8 bolts at all gem levels, previously 12 to 29. Now has a base radius of 3.6, previously 2.8, and now deals, looks like more damage? Yeah, way more damage. Now fires a bolt every 4 seconds, and when you use a lightning skill near the orb, previously every 3.4 to 2.5 seconds. Orb duration is now 12 seconds, previously 10. So, in order to... it's going to be very easy to use up all of the bolts, basically. Overwhelming Presence and Withering Presence are now described as aura skills and have the aura tag. Perfect Strike now has attack damage of 470 to 1029, previously higher, and now has a much higher strike range. Permafrost Bolts now have more freeze build-up, way more freeze build-up, and less attack damage. Plasma Blast now has more magnitude of shock, and no longer has more chance to shock. Projectile converts fizz to lightning. Quality now provides more magnitude of poison inflicted for poison burst. Rain of Arrows. Quality of Rain of Arrows now adds projectiles. That's actually pretty cool. Raise Zombie now provides increased effective empowerment instead of more movement speed. Rake is no longer incorrectly tagged as a travel skill. This tag was left over from an earlier version of the skill that traveled much further without a target, whereas the released version of Rake does not meet the criteria of a travel skill. Please note that this was not a balance motivated change. Consistency is the primary goal of gem tags, and we would have nerfed the Rake plus Stomping Ground interaction in a different way instead of if it was appropriate for Rake to retain the travel tag. Okay, so Rake and Stomping Ground doesn't work anymore. Rapid Assault. Spearheads left by Final Strike now lasts for 30 seconds, previously 10. Rapid Shot no longer has a delay before firing bolts. or less reload speed. It now has 100 maximum ammunition at all gem levels. And more maximum heat. It now deals a nice amount more attack damage. And quality grants much more heat. And no longer grants... The heat no longer grants rapid shot damage gained as fire. Instead, reaching maximum heat prevents you from using the skill for 10 seconds. It now generates heat once per attack instead once per 0.25 seconds. Heat now begins decaying after 4 seconds without gaining heat at a rate of 10 heat per second. Heat no longer grants grenade skills damage gained as fire. Instead, explosive grenade and cluster grenade consume 15 heat to gain 50% of damage as fire, while incendiary shot consumes 30% heat to gain more ignite magnitude. Okay. It ultimately it doesn't matter to me, I'm not using it. Row mount now grants 15% increased movement speed while mounted, however it now grants 80% less movement speed penalty while using skills, previously 100. Approximately canceling out the bonus while using a skill. Ripwire Ballista has been renamed Artillery Ballista. It now fires a hail of bolts into the air, landing in an area and hitting all enemies in the area a number of times equal to the projectile count. Bolts now fire 4 projectiles, previously 5, and deal 24 to 40 attack damage at gem levels 7 to 20. Previously 98 to 153. That is quite the nerf. Bolt attack speed is now 25% of base, previously 100. And Ballista now has a duration of 12 seconds, previously 16. Quality now grants an additional 0 to 200% more pin damage. Man, they really hated this. What? This seems like it got butchered. Again, doesn't matter to me. I'm not using ballistas, but that seems like a lot. Rolling Slam now has 1.5 seconds to total attack time, previously 1 second. Yay, more minimum attack times. But no longer has an attack speed penalty. Quality now provides... I would much rather an attack speed penalty than a minimum attack time. Now provides increased stun threshold while using a skill instead of causing daze. Scavenge plating now has 4% more armor per scavenge plating at all gem levels. Now has 6 to 8 thorns per scavenge plating at gem level 4, previously 8 to 12. They nerfed thorns? Really? Scaling up to 43 to 64, previously 60 to 90. Why? Quality now provides duration, previously more armor. Okay. Whatever. Siege Cascade, impact now deals attack damage. Previously, okay, Siege Cascade is better. Seismic Cry cooldown is no longer reset if it doesn't empower attacks. Now heavy stuns are primed for stun. I hate this. Because this means Corrupting Cry build is specifically Warbringer only. Now empowers 1 slam. No longer has 200% increased knockback radius, more stun buildup, hits ignore enemy monster physical damage reduction. Now allows you to expend an endurance charge to bypass the cooldown rather than consuming endurance charges to empower additional attacks. Quality now provides empowered attack, aftershocks. Okay. Shield charge. Skill-based movement speed has been reduced by 25%, but it no longer has a cooldown. Now has a base attack time of 0.6 seconds, previously 0.5, and now deals up to 100% more damage based on distance traveled. Area effect now deals 30 to 94 attack damage at gem levels 3 to 20, previously 85 to 254. All the collision now deals 60 to 217. Previously, okay, so shield charge got nerfed. By a lot. I mean, I guess the cooldown. Yeah, I mean, it still got nerfed by a lot. It's just it doesn't have a cooldown anymore. Which is fine. I think it's still going to be like, I think shield charge might actually just be the best leveling skill coming up in the next league. And it's because shield charge is going to become like the best way to use stomping ground. Even though it doesn't like get a crazy amount of added attack anymore. Okay, curvature has been reduced and the wall is approximately longer, or 40% longer. And the radius is 4 from 3. Additionally, damages enemies in close proximity to the wall in all directions when exploding. And you can now use shield charge to bash straight through the wall. When the wall is destroyed by your own skills, the entire wall is destroyed at once rather than only the nearby segments. However, this skill can only deal damage to each enemy once. Deals slightly less damage, but now has 100% more damage if it's destroyed by your skills. Shock burst rounds. Pulse explosion attack damage has been lowered. Shockwave totem has attack speed of 50% of base, previously 100. Siphoning strike. Shockwave now takes monsters into account. Explosive demise is now an attack instead of a spell, dealing 300% attack damage. Now deals additional fire damage equal to 8% of minions' life, previously 12, and can now target minions with slightly more life. Skeletal Brute has a now command skill, which is a war cry. Cleric provides skeletons are immune for a couple of seconds. Frost Mage has ice armor. Skeletal Sniper. Gas Arrow. Cooldown is lower. Deals slightly more damage. And quality gains more damage. Storm Mage. Death Storm now deals more damage. Bolt and shock ground radius is now 2 meters, previously 1.8. Projectiles now chain 2 times at all gem levels, previously 2 to 4. Snipe Explosion is no longer guaranteed critical hit and doesn't have increased critical damage bonuses. Explosion now deals 424 to 1092 attack damage at all levels. Previously way lower, and has a radius that is much bigger. Perfectly timed arrows that hit frozen or heavy stunned enemies now cause larger explosions that deal much more damage. Okay. Solar Orb no longer has a mana cost. Pulse now deals 15 to 149 to 22 to 224. So slightly more damage. Ignite now ignites as though dealing very slightly more damage. Spark can now be cold infused to shoot a large number of projectiles in a circle, dealing both cold and lightning. Initial hit now deals less damage, while the pulses now deal 50% more damage. The ignited ground now gains up to 100% radius of the ground spears over. Wait, previously 30%. Now deals 67% more damage. Quality now provides a chance to retain glory on use instead of magnitude of ignite. Spear field now deals significantly more attack damage, but less damage in the first half second. No longer has more damage after half second. So I think still better. Stormwave now additionally hits targets slightly to either side. Charge bolt duration is 10 seconds, previously 8. Sunder. Thunder no longer has 0.9 second total attack time. Or is that? But now attacks at 35% attack speed, previously 65. Okay, Sunder is a lot slower, but at least it doesn't have a minimum attack time. No longer consumes fully broken armor to guarantee critical, instead inflicts sundered armor on fully broken targets, inflicting an additional 20% increased physical damage taken for a duration. Adjusted the damaging area more closely to match the visual effects. Okay, sweet. This, I think, is a positive direction. Supercharged Slam is now more powerful at all levels and has 40% more damage per stage, previously 60. I don't know. That might not actually be better. It's better for, like, if you just want to use it really quickly, but I think it might be same-ish at max charge. I don't know. I don't know enough about Supercharged Slam. Tempest Bell now provides more damage per hit with active bell. Per hit the active bell has taken, instead of bell is destroyed after plus hits. Could be good. Temporal Chains now has, let's see, Temporal Chains blows targets by 46 to 59, previously 24 to 28, and that's to account for the less curse effect now. Thunderous Leap, leave shock ground when detonating spears. Time of Need, attribute requirement is now 75% strength and 25% intelligence, previously 100% strength. I think I like this, because the requirement on this was pretty insane. Toxic Growth, Pustules Need, 46 to 100 attack damage, previously 42. Or now deal. Now a rain skill and no longer causes you to leap into the air. Now also has the barrageable tag. Ooh, that's actually pretty sick. Trinity now applies to all elemental damage instead of elemental attack damage. Yes. Quality now grants skill speed instead of attack skill speed. Good. This is a step in the right direction. This is good. This means that Trinity is going to be very, very nice for the Sorcerer. Unearth can now be used on dead skeletal reviving minions once per death to create a bone construct. Bone constructs created by Unearth now have a dash attack they can use to close the distance on an enemy. Quality now also increases the bone construct movement speed, and the description has been updated to indicate that larger corpses can create more than one bone construct. Vaulting Impact now allows you to jump over enemies and small amounts of terrain. To support this, a number of changes to camera movement have been made as a result. That result in smoother camera movement during skills. Now deals 194 to 499 from 157 to 409. And now escalates days, causing a proportion of the damage by bolting impacts to be taken by all sequential hits until the days expires. So another complicated impale. Okay. Volcanic fissure now creates two branches that emerge from either side of the main fissure. The length of the fissure is now affected by area modifiers. Now has a minimum gem level of 7, previously 9. Now has 80% of physical damage converted to fire, previously 60. And now deals 88 to 45, previously 84 to 163. Aftershocks cannot trigger more than once every 0.2 seconds, and now provides 20% chance to cause an aftershock instead of duration. Okay. Allied slams now trigger volcanic fissures. Re-triggers are now treated as aftershocks and will scale with aftershock specific effects. Okay, good. The aftershock changes are good. Voltaic grenade now applies electrocution debuff on enemies. 2 enemies on hit for 6 seconds. And now has 210 to 340 from more electrocution buildup, previously 50. Now has 136 to 327 attack damage, previously much higher. Vulnerability now inflicts negative armor at all levels, previously much lower, but this is because of the less effect. I don't like that. I guess I forgot this is the way vulnerability works in PoE 2. I don't like that it's just minus maximum armor. I think that feels bad. Like, not only is that less effective for physical builds that are not specifically attack builds, but well, no, because armor now is all physical, so maybe it's fine. I don't know. I don't know. Alright, Warbanner Aura now grants more attack damage and increased accuracy rating, and now has a duration that is increased. Yeah, increased. Wave of Frost now freezes enemies that are primed for freeze. Whirling Slash movement is now able to pathfind slightly, making it less likely to get stuck on small obstacles. Whirlwind Lance, Collapsing Whirlwind, now deals more damage and now has a limit of 6, previously 5, and a duration of 15, previously 8. Wind Serpent's Fury no longer causes shockwaves when enemies are hit into walls or larger enemies. Quality now provides more knockback distance instead of increased knockback distance. Wind Blast now dazes on hit instead of causing daze buildup, equal to the percentage of physical damage dealt. Quality now provides more damage to enemies within 1.5 meters of you, scaling down to no bonus at 4 meters or further. Updated the description of Raging Spirits to clarify the flaming skills do not follow player commands as they are busy raging. Clarified the addition to radius per stage of Whirling Slash and Whirlwind Lance skill descriptions. Updated the wording and presentation for Plague Bearer to be more simplified. Updated the description of Thunderous Leap to mention that it detonates spear skills. Ooh. Alright. Beak changes are next, and the first one is one that I'm a little sad about. Or really a lot sad about. I thought this item was super cool, and I knew they were going to change it. Like, they talked about how they were going to change it at the beginning of the last league, so I knew it was getting changed, but I'm sad it got changed. The Bira's Anguish unique charm now creates ignited ground for 4 seconds when used, igniting enemies as though dealing fire damage equal to 500% of your maximum life. It no longer ignites enemies in your presence on use. So, this was a really cool item because you could turn it into its own little build by scaling your presence. and it was it turned into a really cool like you can deal like 2 million damage or something like that. So it was really neat. That's no longer going to be a thing because the ignited ground is going to be in basically one location, and it's not going, it doesn't specify that it's the size of your presence, which is the really big portion of this. Oh, a real shame. Black Braid unique body armor now has 80 to 120 armor, applies to elemental damage, previously 100. So a little bit more range on there. Could be good, could be bad. Bones of Allure now provide increased reservation efficiency with undead minions instead of reduced reservation. Existing items have reduced reservation efficiency but can be updated with the Divine Orb. It also now has 5 to 15% increased movement speed. Huge. The Brisk Grab unique body armor now has gain deflection rating equal to 20 to 30% of evasion rating. I think that's good, but I have no idea. Death's Harp unique bow now has critical damage. Effigy of Cruelty unique focus now has critical hits with spells. Apply 1 to 3 stacks of critical weakness. That's not bad, but if I remember correctly, Effigy of Cruelty isn't very good. It's not bad. Oh, 3 to 5 stacks, and it went down. Okay, previously 3 to 5. Didn't read. Malagara's Virtuosity unique gloves now have critical damage bonuses 250, previously 300. Ow. Nazir's Judgment unique quarterstaff now has days on hit instead of causes days build up equal to 100% of damage dealt. Now deals 30 to 50 increased melee damage against stunned enemies. Pariah's Embrace unique body armor now provides 20 to 40 increased mana cost efficiency instead of 20% reduced mana cost of skills. This change does not affect existing versions of the item. Bottle's Malt unique body armor now gains deflection equal to 40 to 60% of evasion rating. Tangletongue unique spear now has 5 to 8% critical strike chance, previously 10 to 20. Existing uniques can be made worse with the Divine Orb. This is one of the like super OP forking spears. Whispering Ice unique staff inflict cold exposure on hit, lowering total cold resistance by 20 to 30% modifier. The Zoph's Blood unique amulet. The Zoph's Blood unique amulets. Enemies in your presence have fire exposure modifier, now applies elemental exposure instead. Ooh. Following uniques can no longer drop and will be reintroduced at a later date. Inferno Clasp, Forbidden Gaze, Thunderstep, Wailing Wall, Fallen Formation, Violence, Stake, Deepest Tower, and Remembered Tales. The Red Blade Banner unique shield now has 10 to 15% increased block from 20 to 30. Black Aside now has 10 to 15 from 30 to 40. Mirror of Service now has 20 to 15 from 30 to 50. Alchemira now has 15 to 20 from 30 to 40. Oaksworn now has 20 to 30 from 40 to 60. Duke and Halt now has 20 to 30 from 30 to 50. Blood Barrier now has 10 to 15 from 20 to 30, and Doomgate now has 80 to 100 from 80. Oh, Doomgate went up and now has take 25 to 40 from blocked hits instead of 20. Never mind. That feels bad, honestly. Okay, distilled emotions have been renamed liquid emotions. Cool. Lowest tiers of liquid emotions are now called diluted liquid. The 3 highest tiers are now called concentrated. To better distinguish between the tiers, diluted and concentrated have also received new 2D arts. Orb of Chance are now more likely to succeed on amulets, rings, belts, and charms. More Velobs are found during Trials of Chaos and less often from other sources. The following omens can no longer be obtained: Greater Annulment, Dextral Alchemy, Sinestral Alchemy, Dextral Coronation, and Sinestral Coronation. I feel like these were all bad, right? Like they were just all bad. Talisman of Eshta now provides increased cost efficiency, previously reduced cost of skills. Actually, I kind of want to look these up. Let's see. Omens. Okay, so Greater Annulment. You can annul 2 modifiers. Omen of Dextral Alchemy. While this item is active in your inventory, your next Orb of Alchemy will result in the maximum number of suffix modifiers. Omen of Sinestral Alchemy. Will result in the maximum number of prefix modifiers. Omen of Dextral Coronation. Why are these so hard to find for me? Dextral Coronation. Regal Orb will only add suffix. And Sinestral Coronation will only add prefix. Sure. I mean, I'm not sad to see some of those go. Honestly, the alchemies could have been cool if there were like greater alchemies, but I don't know. I do not know. We'll have to see when we get in game. All right. Items will inherit. Items with inherent skills can now rarely drop with skill levels up to level 20 in higher tier maps. Finally. Modifiers of martial weapons now roll up to 25% critical damage bonus, previously 39. Existing items can be made worse. Okay. Corruption implicit on martial weapons is now 5 to 10% from 10 to 15. War pick, battle pick, and strife pick. One-hand mace is now 5 to 10 critical damage bonus, previously 10 to 15. Implicit modifier for construct hammers, structured hammer, and fortified hammer now provides 40% days on hit. Reduced number of increased block chance modifiers on shields from 7 to 3. The highest tier modifier now has up to 30% block chance, previously 81. That's such a huge reduction. That is an enormous reduction. These chances do not affect existing items. Corruption implicit on shields now has 10 to 15% increased block chance, previously 30 to 40. Iron runes now grant up to 14, 16 to 18 physical damage on martial weapons. So nerfed. Armor evasion nerfed. Desert runes 6, 8 to 10, previously 8, 10, 12. as extras. Mana on wands has been increased. Yeah, mind runes, base maximum mana on wands and staves has been increased. Stun threshold on armor has been increased. Damage is extra damage of all elements has been slightly nerfed. Soul core life on body armor has been buffed. Mana has been buffed. Freeze buildup has been buffed. Max cold res. Is a slight nerf for the max res because now you can only put it on helmets, gloves, and boots respectively. Quantity of all gold dropped by slaying has been buffed, but it's now only on gloves. Elemental ailment threshold on boots, previously 15% on all armor. Increased charm charges, reduced slowing potency of debuffs on you. Grants hits against you have reduced damage bonus on body armor and shields, so that buffed but not on all armor now. 25% of armor now applies to cold damage on helmets, previously 20 on body armor. 25 to fire damage on gloves, previously 20 on body armor. And 25 of lightning applies on boots, previously 20 on body armor. So you can get a nice amount of of armor applies to elemental. I don't know how much I value that again though, since it's before res. I feel like that's such a bad. I think in order to make armor better, they need to swap that back. Atahuma's Soul Core of Retreat now applies to foci. Soul Core of Retreat. Master Start of Energy Shield Recharge. Okay. Soul Core of Foulness adds chaos damage, more chaos damage. The of Foulness is martial weapon. Box Talisman now grants presence area of effect to scepters, so more presence area of effect. Owl grants recovery rate on foci, previously boots. Ag Talisman increased thorn critical strike on helmets. Actually not bad. Not bad. They gave some thorns love back. Let's see, block attack chance on shields, previously area of effect on boots. Cat Talisman, accuracy rating on gloves, previously hits against you had reduced critical strike damage. Talisman of Ralakesh now grants reservation efficiency of minion skills, which we might want. Let's see, what is Ralakesh? It's a talisman. Talisman of Ralakesh. Minions have 5% reduced reservation and it's specific to helmets. Soul Core of Takaba now grants damage bonus. Added new suffix modifiers that can roll on strength armors. From level 33 that grants a percentage of armor applying to elemental damage. Adds a new suffix modifiers that can roll on dexterity armors. Provides evasion rating to deflection rating, and intelligence that gives faster start of energy shield recharge. Okay. Existing modifiers for increasing energy shield recharge rate that roll on foci now also roll on intelligence helmets, gloves, and boots. Alright. Lowest tier modifiers granting level... lowest tier modifiers granting level to all skills to a specific type on a two-handed weapons now have a value of +2, previously +1, +2. Existing items can be updated using a divine orb. Okay, so you can't get unlucky anymore with like low level staves. Damage gained is extra elemental damage, increased mana regeneration rate, increased critical strike hit chance for spells, and increased critical strike damage bonus. Modifiers on staves now have higher values than the corresponding modifiers on wands and foci. Good. Existing items can be updated using a divine orb. Critical hit chance for spell modifiers on wands and foci now span from 27 to 73, previously 10 to 109. Not as good. Jewels and time lost jewels can no longer roll minion accuracy modifiers. This is good because minions no longer need accuracy. Scepters can no longer roll accuracy modifiers. Stag talismans socketed into scepters now grant allies in your presence deal 1-40 added lightning damage. Previously accuracy rating. Good. Lesser Adept Rune now correctly provides +6 dexterity when socketed. Embroidered gloves renamed to embellish gloves, and weapon swap. Speed, jewel, and corruption modifiers can no longer roll because they're irrelevant. Nice. What was this? Stag talisman? I'm gonna figure out what talismans I'm gonna want. Okay. Monster changes. Lowered the growth on monster evasion rating with level. This results in 30% less evasion rating at level 80. Failing to collect all the hourglasses before Zarok, the temporal boss fight, no longer fails your trial of the Sekimas. Huge. Now instead only damaging your honor. Huge. If you fail to collect the hourglasses, Zarko, the temporal, now enters a secondary phase where the hourglasses slow. Hourglasses and slow debuff persist, but at a much slower rate. Okay. The life of most Act 3 bosses has been reduced by 15%. Rogue Exiles now gain additional life scaling from 65 onwards, resulting in 30 to 70 life increase for tier 1 to tier 16. Treant Foul Spawn can once again be bound as a specter. Non-unique items in Rogue Exiles are now affected by increased rarity of items found in area. Monsters in the Viridian Wildwood unique map now have a lower aggro range while in the darkness. The map version of Rattle Cage, the Earthbreaker boss, has now been renamed to Volcar the Emberborn to better distinguish between the two fights. The periodic invulnerability aura monster modifier now only makes things immune to damage from enemies. Reduce the number of river hags that spawn in the drowned city. Thank you. Incrementally improved monster behavior. Quest changes. Hunt begins must now be completed in a single instance. You only have to complete the quest once per league. Okay. Darka in the Aruda caravan now offers earning passage quest reward if you didn't take it from her in the Vestiri outskirts. Party member revive UI now displays whether you're too far away to revive a dead party member. Ritual favor UI now displays the number of rerolls available. Modify ranges. Now show a positive sign if the modifier range spans both positive and negative numbers. Okay, that's actually cool. Wisp minimap icons are no longer removed from your minimap if you run out of range of them. You are now able to respawn at a checkpoint from the escape menu in the Trial of the Sekimas and Trial of Chaos, which take you back to the entrance of the respective trial. When using a controller, you can now remove debuffs from your character while the game is paused. Remove buffs, not debuffs. Improve management of cache files on consoles to avoid running out of temporary storage space. This should fix issues with the minimap being reset and leaving and re-entering an area. Control left click on your item to fill the I have section on the currency exchange. Oh, nice. I didn't notice this was missing before. Added support for the import keyword in item filters. Added support for multiple custom sounds and item filters. Added a bindable action that allows you to zoom in using a controller. Updated the stash UI for controller. More microtransactions and some bug fixes. Not too worried about the bug fixes. All right, that was a lot. So the thing I'm considering doing, and we'll really see if it pans out, because we don't know anything about these new skills yet. But this sounds awesome to me. New intelligence persistent buff gem, Ravenous Swarm, creates untargetable minions that attack and poison enemies within the swarms as long as they are nearby. So depends on how nearby is and how good the swarms are, but this sounds cool to me, so I might try to work with it. Now we don't know when we get this gem, so we're gonna have to figure out how that's gonna work, but it should be a witch gem for sure. So that works out, because I think what I'm gonna do, and I'm not gonna make a build guide for this because I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to start with a witch, plan on going lich, and we're gonna go necromantic conduit for unholy might, and then blackened heart for increasing that unholy might, and then rupture soul and crystalline phylactery. Not worried about any of the other stuff, because this doesn't actually help me a ton unless I like stack life, and I really don't want to do that. I don't think. I think the way I want to approach this is mana stacking and then mana regen. So playing around with this idea, I have no idea if this is how I actually want to approach this. If we do this, then we convert all our energy shield to mana, which I think is good, because then we can still use like that one amulet to get a nice chunk of energy shield and still gain a layer of ES. We would need like this maybe. I don't know, it's a weird one, because like I definitely want stuff like that. But arcane surge doesn't do me any good. And we have no idea what this skill looks like. I also don't know how poison works with minions. You know? Like, I know I don't know. I kind of know how I expect it to work. Like, I expect it to just be poisons are attacks based on, okay, the most damaging poison, if the poison limit is 1, is going to be the one that's doing damage, right? The thing that I don't know, the thing that's like got me confused is what happens if I increase my poison count, like my, let's see, find a poison thing. Where's it at? Yeah, targets can be affected by +1 of your poisons at the same time. Right? I don't think this does anything. Because it's not my poison. Yeah, I guess I do this, right? And then I just hope that the skeletal swarm is better than a skeletal warrior. They can do envenom. See, more damage. More attack speed for sure. Okay, so let's see, spirit. Six. I don't know how to like alter this. Oh, you know what? No, I know what it is. There we go. Okay. So that's that. Which is fine. Yeah, I guess we just do like crafted items. So let's see, craft. Oh yeah, there we go. Craft, scepter. What do we want? Physical damage, spirit, not suck, not suck. Attack speed. Had to build. I don't think I can have two scepters, can I? Like, it's the thing that they won't allow us to do because they hate us. At least I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me check. Let me check. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I don't have enough in for that. I have enough in for this? Yeah. Yeah, you can't dual wield scepters. I think it's dumb. Okay, so you can't dual wield scepters. What do we do then? I mean, I guess do we just have to use this club? Give me the ring mask, crown, club, scepter, gauntlets, focus. This one doesn't matter that much to me though. Okay. Wait, I mean, what else am I supposed to do? Just shield? Because I've got no other choice? Staff doesn't do me much good, right? Yeah, that's all stuff for myself. But yeah, I guess I just use a shield. before I do the dual wield, because like what else am I gonna do? I don't think I can use a rare. Let's see. Scepter has good stuff. Flail doesn't exist. Full ring, scepter, wand. Okay, so wand first. Decompose, mana drain. Alright, so let's go with decompose. Nope. And nope. Okay, so wand is out. One-handed mace is what the minion pick is. This has no minion mods. So it's actually just you have to use this spiked club. You don't have a choice. That kind of sucks. The only other option is you just use a focus anyway and make a focus entirely built around energy shield, which might be the way to go. Because if you do that and you do craft item, focus, sacred focus, leyline focus, you do max energy shield, increase energy shield, spell skills don't matter probably. Mana would be the next best bet. You do that, right? Because we're stacking mana, that is 400 mana. So that's just a huge amount of mana that we can grab right there. I think it's the best we can do for that. Assuming we want to go that route. What is the chance to hit on these right now? %. Okay. I mean, ultimately, I'm just gonna go for it and figure it out as I go, because that's the way I do things. Withered on hit would be really nice, because that would mean we can grab like 10 withered on hit, or 10 withered. Huge. That is unlikely that we're gonna have 20 critical weakness at any point. It is gonna be good though. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, ultimately this is going to depend pretty highly on what's going on once we actually get in game. But I am very happy with this setup right here. Right? We're gonna grab Necromantic Conduit. Hopefully. As long as we can get enough mana regen to offset it. Which shouldn't be that difficult. I think you need like... You'll need 25% to match it, and then you just need a little bit more to offset it. Because the natural mana regeneration is 4% per second, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Mana. Okay, so natural mana regeneration. All characters have a default mana regeneration of 4% that does not increase with levels. I could use Font of Mana early on. Oh no, I can't. No, Font of Mana would require me to do something. Clarity I could use as a persistent buff. Yeah, Clarity. That's an option if I really need it. Your minions deal 30% increased damage while you are not on full mana while a supported skill is active. Interesting, okay. Actually, I do want to look up more minion stuff. Let's see. Minion. We have a bunch of minions. The Pain Offering impales the skeleton. And nearby enemies into a frenzy. Or grants increased attack and cast speed and grants minions more damage. Radius is 6 meters, duration is 6 seconds. Raise zombies. Frost Mage, Spectre, Beast, Reaver, Bone Offering. Raging Spirits. Projectiles from fire spells. Summon a spirit on hit. Alright, Elemental Army, don't care. Essence Harvest doesn't matter. Last Gasp doesn't matter. Instability, they can't die. And can't be targeted, so it doesn't matter. They remove 100% of your life from a near a minion to deal 30% more damage. Okay, now that doesn't work. Your skills target minions from supported skills within 6 meters if possible. Nope. Speed shield, nope. Bidding. I don't think they have a command skill, commandment. Cooldown for command skills, nope. More damage if they have revived recently, nope. Minions, heal allied minions. Okay, no, also. Alright, Feeding Frenzy, perfect. We have a skill. Loyalty, 10% of damage from hits is taken from supported companion life. Now it doesn't work. Muster. I don't really want to use that. Infernal Legion. I could do this. Because they're untargetable and undamageable. Let's see. Minions from supported skills take 20% of their maximum life as fire damage per second. Ignite within... Oh no, which can be damaged. Okay, then it wouldn't work. Enormity. Increased size, more maximum life, more damage, and in mastery. It might actually be hard to get enough supports. Who knows? We'll have to figure it out. Let's see. Dark Defiler doesn't do me any good. Carrion Call gives me a little increased damage, but is otherwise not good. It really is just that one. Man, that's rough. Okay. I think that satisfies my curiosity for now. So big takeaways are there are a lot of buffs that we don't know about. Like a ton of skills got significant buffs, and as long as they weren't mentioned, they probably got buffed. I'm a little sad they didn't revert some of the poison cloud things they did last patch, but oh well. The thing that I'm stuck on right now is I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go Ravenous Swarm. It sounds like a really cool ability, and I'm excited about it, so I'm gonna do it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. Just a heads up for everybody. I might put out a video on like how I'm planning to build, but I'm not gonna do a build guide. I don't know enough about how the build or how the skill is going to work, and I won't know enough about how the skill is going to work. I'm kind of just gonna experiment with it and see what I can build. So no build guide for PoE2 this go round. Not that I think I could put out a really good build guide anyway, because I didn't stay around long enough last league to know, you know, the state of the game really well. So that's where that sits. And then tomorrow, I will not be streaming, but tomorrow starts the Last Epoch season. And so I'll be playing that, and then we'll be streaming that on Saturday. So next Wednesday, we'll probably be playing Last Epoch and then doing a little bit of more theory crafting with anything that is out for PoE2. And then on Friday next week, we're going to be streaming the start of the league. And I think that's it. So thank you everybody so much for watching. It's been a great time. I cannot wait for the new league to start. It's going to be a ton of fun. And yeah, I'll see you all then. Thanks again, everybody.